My name is Darnell Graves, and what happened to me on August 19, 2014, is something I wouldn't believe myself if I hadn't lived through every terrifying second of it. I grew up deep in the south side of Baltimore, in a place where the sirens were louder than the crickets and gunshots were more common than church bells. My mother, Charlene, raised me and my little sister Monique on her own, working double shifts at St. Mercy's Hospital just to keep the lights on. My father dipped out when I was just a toddler. Last I heard, he was somewhere down in Florida trying to hustle up a new life. But me? I learned how to survive in the concrete jungle, where the rules were simple: stay tough, don't snitch, and never let anyone punk you. By the time I was 12, I was already running errands for older guys on the block, at first just small things, like delivering packages or watching the corner while they handled business. But that world pulls you in quick. Before I knew it, I wasn't just watching, I was living it. Dealing, stealing, carrying a piece everywhere I went, and doing whatever it took to get respect. Respect out there was like gold. People feared you or forgot you. I didn't want to be forgotten, so I made sure I was feared. I got jumped, I got scars, I got locked up a couple times, but I thought I was building a name. What I didn't realize was I was digging a grave. By 23, I was already a different man, hard-faced, short-tempered, ready to explode at any moment. I had people under me. I made decent money, enough to take care of my mom when she got sick and pay Monique's tuition for her nursing classes. I told myself that justified everything I was doing. But deep down, when I was alone at night and the streets got quiet, there was this pit in my stomach. I didn't know it then, but that was my soul crying out, because what happened next was going to change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and God himself. That night, I was meeting up with a guy I didn't trust, but the money was too good to pass up. I pulled up outside a rundown duplex off Holland Street just before midnight. I had my Glock tucked in my waistband, like always, but something felt off the moment I stepped out of the car. The air was still, too still. You ever feel like the world holds its breath right before something bad happens? That's how it felt. I turned the corner into the alley, and before I could knock, I heard the first shot. It hit me in the lower left side of my stomach and spun me around. The second one hit my chest and knocked me to the ground. I don't even remember seeing the shooter's face. I just remember falling backward, my head cracking against the pavement, and my lungs gasping for air that wasn't coming. My vision started closing in around the edges, like a tunnel getting narrower and narrower. I could hear my own blood pouring onto the ground. Then, the sirens started, but they were far away, muffled, like I was underwater. Faces blurred in and out of view. Somebody was yelling my name, I think. But then, all that started fading. I wasn't in pain anymore, not exactly. It was more like I was frozen in place. The night air around me felt cold, too cold, considering it was a summer night. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt hollow. I couldn't feel the blood anymore, couldn't feel my legs. Then came the strangest thing. I felt myself lifting. Not like floating on a cloud, but like my soul had been yanked out of my body and was now hanging somewhere above the scene. I could see myself lying there, lifeless. Paramedics were working on me, pressing down hard on my chest. One of them was shouting, but I couldn't make out the words. I could see the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the windows, bouncing off brick walls like a warning from heaven. But I wasn't connected to it anymore. It was like watching a movie of my own death from somewhere I didn't belong. Then, just like that, everything went black. Not like sleep, not like when you close your eyes and drift off, but like a void had swallowed me whole. The darkness had weight to it. It pressed in on me from all sides. And worse than the dark was the silence. It wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. It was like my soul was locked in a trunk and buried under the weight of everything I had ever done. I didn't know where I was, but I knew I wasn't in the land of the living anymore. I don't know how long I was in that darkness, but time didn't feel the same there. It could have been minutes, hours, maybe days. It all blended together, like I was suspended in a place that didn't follow the same rules as the world I'd come from. The silence didn't last. It started with these faint groans, almost like echoes bouncing off stone walls I couldn't see. I couldn't tell where they were coming from, but they kept getting louder. Then I started hearing whispers, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Some sounded like they were inches from my ear, others seemed buried far off in the distance. I couldn't make out any words, but I felt them. They were full of blame, bitterness, mockery. And they were all directed at me. Every whisper carried the weight of something I'd done, some lie I told, some person I hurt, some sin I buried and thought would stay hidden. The more I listened, the more I realized I wasn't alone. I couldn't see anyone, but I could feel them. All around me. Souls, or spirits, or whatever they were, each one wrapped in sorrow, torment, and regret. It was like being surrounded by a crowd of people who'd all been damned together, each of us carrying our own personal hell, bumping into each other in a place where pain was the only language spoken. And then the whispers turned to screams. I swear to you, the sound of that many people crying out at once, it did something to me. It got inside my bones. Some were screaming out of fear, others out of rage, and some were just howling in pure confusion, like they didn't know how they got there or why no one was coming to save them. That's what hit me the hardest, realizing no help was coming. No light, no voice, no rescue. Just endless darkness and the weight of everything I ever tried to forget. And then the heat came. Not like fire in the way we know it, not like touching a stove or walking near a bonfire. This heat was alive. It breathed. It wrapped around me like a snake and pressed into me like it was trying to tattoo guilt into my soul. It didn't burn my skin, it burned my memories, my regrets, my spirit. The heat made everything I'd done feel brand new again, like I was living it all over. I felt every punch I'd ever thrown, every kid I sold to, every tear I caused my mother, every moment I laughed while somebody else suffered. All of it, over and over, stacked on top of each other like bricks tied to my chest. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But there was nowhere to go. And then I saw the flames, not big, roaring ones, but flickers, like warnings out of the corner of my eye. Every time I looked straight at them, they backed away, but the second I turned my head, they crept closer. It was like they were playing with me, teasing me, letting me know they were coming. And in the middle of all that chaos, all that noise and fire and heat, I saw him. I couldn't explain how, but I knew instantly who it was. TUPAC Shakur. Just standing there, about 20 feet in front of me. He didn't look ghostly or angelic. He looked exactly like he did in life. Real. Solid. Present. He wasn't rapping, wasn't smiling, wasn't doing anything flashy. He was just staring at me. Dead serious. Like he knew everything about me. Like he was waiting for me to say something. And then, he did. His voice cut through the screams like they didn't even exist. I don't remember every word exactly, but I'll never forget the feeling. He told me I didn't belong there, yet. He said I had made the choices that brought me to this place, that everything I had done pointed my soul in this direction, but that God's mercy was still real. He warned me not to take this moment lightly. He told me there were so many like me, young black men chasing respect, chasing money, trying to survive, thinking we were invincible. And he said too many of us wake up too late, after we're already lost forever. He didn't sound angry. He didn't sound sad. He sounded final. Like a judge. And then he was gone. Just like that. The heat didn't stop. The screams didn't fade. But something changed inside me. It was like a seed got planted, a tiny flicker of hope in all that torment. And that's when I felt it. A force. Something yanked me, hard. Like an invisible hand grabbing my chest and ripping me upward through layers of black and fire and voices and heat. It felt like I was being pulled through water, except there was no air, no light, no sound. I don't even remember what direction was up or down. I just knew I was moving. Fast. The pain started to peel away. The voices got quieter. The fire faded. Until finally, I saw a bright white light up ahead. It wasn't warm. It wasn't holy. It was harsh. Cold. Blinding. It was the fluorescent lights of a hospital room. I opened my eyes, choking on my own breath. There were tubes in my mouth, wires on my chest, and a nurse yelling for a doctor. I was alive. Barely. But alive. And I knew, right then, my life would never be the same. They kept me in the ICU for 6 days, and every one of those days felt like I was trapped between two worlds. My body was here, stitched up and bruised, with machines monitoring my every heartbeat and nurses checking in with concerned eyes. But my mind, it was somewhere else. I couldn't sleep without waking up in a cold sweat. I closed my eyes and find myself right back in that place, that black pit, surrounded by screams and guilt and fire that wasn't made of flames. Every time the machines beeped too loud or someone wheeled a gurney down the hall too fast, I'd jump like I was hearing the whispers again. The doctors said I was lucky. They said the bullets missed every major organ by inches. They called it a miracle. My mother called it prayer. She'd been on her knees every night since the ambulance picked me up, begging God to spare my life. I wanted to tell her what really happened. I wanted to tell her that I didn't just get lucky, that I saw something, felt something, was somewhere. But every time I opened my mouth, the words got stuck behind fear and shame. Because I knew if I started talking about hell, about TUPAC, about being pulled out of a place so dark it felt like the absence of God himself, people would think I lost my mind. So I kept it to myself, at least for a while. But it didn't stay inside. Not really. That experience didn't just haunt me, it changed the way I saw everything. The world didn't look the same when I got out of that hospital. The sun didn't feel warm. The streets felt heavier, like they carried weight I never noticed before. Every time I walked past the corner I used to post on, I could almost hear the whispers again. The trap house on Madison that used to be our spot for late-night deals looked like a coffin to me now. And the guys, my crew, they noticed. "You good, D?" they kept asking me. "You look spooked." I'd just nod and lie, say I was still recovering. But the truth was, I couldn't unsee what I saw. I couldn't unfeel what I felt. And it wasn't just fear, it was conviction. I couldn't go back to who I was before that night. It wasn't just about getting shot. I'd been shot before. It wasn't about the pain or the blood or the stitches. It was about where I went after the bullets hit. That place, that hell, I knew it was real. And I knew I was headed there if I didn't change. But changing ain't easy when your whole life is built on doing wrong. You start questioning everything. Who you are. What you've done. What forgiveness even means. I remember sitting on my mom's porch late one night, a Bible she left out for me sitting in my lap. I hadn't opened it in years. Maybe ever. But that night I did. I didn't know where to start, so I just flipped through until something caught my eye. It was in the book of Isaiah. "Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil." That hit me like a punch. I'd spent my whole life doing just that, calling the worst parts of me strength, calling fear respect, calling survival righteousness. And for what? A reputation that almost sent me to the place God warned us about. I broke down that night. I cried harder than I ever had in my life. Not from pain. From regret. From the weight of knowing I came inches away from eternal separation from God, and that it wasn't some mystery why. It was because I chose that life. I walked into it with my eyes open. Nobody forced me to sell poison to my neighbors. Nobody made me raise my fist or pull the trigger or chase revenge. That was all me. And I knew then, sitting there with the Word of God open in my lap and my hands trembling, that I needed to repent. Not just say sorry. Not just promise to do better. But truly fall on my face and beg for mercy. Because if what I experienced was just a glimpse of where I was headed, I didn't even want to imagine what eternity would have felt like. That night, I gave my life to Christ. It wasn't clean. It wasn't pretty. I didn't have a pastor there or a choir or any of that. It was just me, my porch, my guilt, and God. I cried out loud, literally cried, and asked Him to forgive me. I told Him I didn't want to live for the streets anymore. I told Him I believed in what Jesus did on the cross, and I asked Him to make me new. And I felt something shift. Not like a lightning bolt or fireworks, but like a weight lifted. Like that final chain from hell, the one I still felt wrapped around my chest even days after the hospital, finally snapped loose. I could breathe again. Really breathe. I didn't know what my life would look like from there, but I knew who I didn't want to be anymore. I knew what I wanted to run from. And more importantly, I knew what I wanted to run to. The hardest part wasn't giving my life to God, it was learning how to actually live it. After that night on the porch, I thought I'd wake up the next day with some kind of holy glow around me, like the temptations I knew so well would just vanish. But they didn't. I still woke up in the same room with the same cracks in the ceiling, the same old mattress that creaked every time I turned, and the same streets waiting outside my front door like wolves waiting for me to slip. And the calls didn't stop. Not from the homies, not from the block. Yo, D, we need you for this run. We gotta drop tomorrow, you in? Come through, man, it ain't the same without you. They couldn't understand why I wasn't answering, why I stopped showing up. They thought I was scared, soft, or worse, flipped. But I hadn't flipped on them. I'd flipped on the devil, on the life that nearly dragged my soul straight to the pit. But every missed call came with a weight. These were guys I broke bread with. Guys who fought beside me, bled beside me, went through hell on earth with me. And now I was ghosting them, leaving them behind. Part of me felt like a traitor. But a bigger part of me knew that if I didn't draw a hard line in the sand, I'd be dragged right back into the very hell God just pulled me out of. So I stayed away. I stayed in my room. I stayed in that Bible. I started praying, not fancy prayers, just desperate ones. I talked to God like He was the only one left who hadn't given up on me. Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Lord, I don't know how to live different. Lord, don't let me go back. I said those words with my back against the door some nights, holding it shut like the whole world was trying to break in. And in a way, it was. But God started showing up. Not in burning bushes or angel choirs, but in little things. In peace that made no sense. In a voicemail from Monique telling me how proud she was. In an old man named Mr. Earl who stopped me on the street one day and said, "I've been watching you, son. Something different about your walk." And then he handed me a pamphlet about a men's ministry group that met at the corner church every Tuesday night. I almost threw it away. But something told me to go. I showed up late, sat in the back, hoodie on, head down. I didn't talk much. Just listened. And for the first time in my life, I heard men, grown men, talk about pain, about regret, about being broken. They weren't pretending to be tough. They weren't trying to impress anyone. They were just real. And one of them, a guy named Rodney, shared his story. He'd been in prison for 15 years, got saved behind bars, and now he mentored guys like me. After the meeting, he pulled me aside and said, "You don't have to carry it alone, Darnell. You got brothers now." That hit different. Because I realized then, I'd been living like I was still in the dark, still crawling out of that pit by myself. But God had been surrounding me with light. Little by little, I started letting people in. I started talking. I started healing. And the more I spoke, the more I remembered. I remembered every face from that night. Not just the ones I saw on the street, but the ones I felt in the dark. The ones screaming. The ones begging. The ones who never got pulled out. And I started to understand that I wasn't just spared for me, I was spared to tell them. To warn them. To reach them. God didn't let me live so I could hide. He let me live so I could testify. So I started writing it all down. Every detail. Every tear. Every scream. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't sugarcoat the horror. Because hell isn't a metaphor. It's not a parable or a scare tactic. It's a real place. I've seen it. I've felt it. I've heard it. And if God hadn't shown me mercy, I'd still be there. I'd still be falling. Still hearing those voices. Still trapped in that heat that never cools. That truth became the fire in my bones. It burned hotter than any corner hustle, hotter than any reputation I ever built. It gave me purpose. Real purpose. So I told my story to anyone who would listen, at shelters, in jail cells, at church pulpits. I didn't care who they were or what they believed. I just wanted them to know that God saves, even from the worst places. Even from the grave. Even from hell itself. Because if He could save me, a street soldier with blood on his hands and pride in his heart, then He could save anybody. I thought the hardest part of my new life would be walking away from the streets. But I was wrong. The hardest part was learning how to live with the memories. Memories that didn't fade just because I got saved. See, when you spend years building a name in the streets, when your hands have been dipped in violence, and your words have been soaked in poison, the past doesn't let go of you quietly. It haunts you. Some nights I'd sit up in bed with sweat pouring down my back, my fists clenched, thinking I was still back in that alley with blood leaking from my stomach and fire waiting beneath my feet. I'd hear those screams again, those endless, layered screams of people lost in a place so dark even their names seemed forgotten. It wasn't just fear. It was mourning. I wasn't just mourning who I was mourning who I'd led there. All those young cats I brought into the game, all those times I handed a package to a 15-year-old with no father, and told him it'd make him a man. I was thinking about them now. Did I help put them on a path to that same fire? Did I stain their souls with my ambition? I started running into old faces, guys who thought I went soft, who laughed when I told them I'd given my life to Christ. "You? Preaching now?" they'd say. "Man, stop playing dot." But I didn't flinch. I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. I told them straight. I've been to hell, and it's not a joke. I didn't say it with theatrics or tried to scare them. I just told them the truth, plain and raw. Some of them walked away, shaking their heads. But others stayed. Listened. A few even broke down. Because deep down, they were scared too. Scared of what we'd all seen, of what we all knew but never talked about. We'd seen friends die with their eyes open and their souls empty. We'd seen guys take their last breath in the gutter and nobody shed a tear. We thought that was normal. We made it normal. But normal doesn't mean safe. And God was showing me that just because we survived the hood didn't mean we escaped judgment. I started volunteering at youth centers, going into high schools, sharing my story with kids who still thought guns and money were the finish line. I showed them my scars, literally, pulled up my shirt and showed them where the bullets went in and where God brought me back out. I'd tell them about the moment I saw myself from above, my body limp while EMTs tried to save me, and how I floated out of that scene and into something far worse. I'd tell them about the cold, the silence, the pull. How it felt like gravity was broken and something deeper, darker had taken over. I told them about the voices, how the whispers started like guilt and turned into screaming judgment. How the pain wasn't physical, it was spiritual. It was the weight of every sin I ever brushed off coming back all at once. And I always told them about TUPAC. Not because it was sensational, not to sound cool, but because it happened. He stood there, clear as day, like he was meant to be the messenger. His eyes weren't angry or kind, they were certain. He told me I didn't belong there yet, but that if I didn't change, I'd be coming back. And his words still ring in my ears. So many of y'all chasing death, and don't even know you've already been caught. I think about that every day. I think about how close I came to never waking up again. How close I came to being just another name on a RIP shirt, another mural on a wall, another body in the ground while my soul burned forever. But God didn't let that happen. He snatched me back. Not because I deserved it. Not because I earned it. But because He is merciful. That mercy now flows through every part of me. It's what gets me up in the morning. It's what keeps me clean, keeps me focused, keeps me humble. It's what gave me a voice when I didn't think I deserved to speak. And now I speak for those who can't. For those still lost in the fire. For those still falling. There was this one moment I'll never forget. About 6 months after I got out of the hospital, after I gave my life to God, after I started trying to do right. I was walking home from the bus stop, just left a volunteer shift at the shelter downtown where I'd been speaking to some of the younger guys, when I saw this kid posted up on the corner, skinny little dude, probably 17 or 18, hoodie on, eyes darting left and right just like I used to do. He had a pack in his pocket, and his hand on something heavy in his waistband, and everything about him screamed what I used to be. I looked at him, and I swear I saw myself. Same stance. Same look in the eyes, half fear, half pride, like he was hoping somebody would test him just so he could prove he belonged. I stood there for a second, and I felt this pull inside me. I didn't know the kid, but I knew what road he was walking. I crossed the street and went up to him, slow, careful not to startle him, and I said, "What's up, lil' man?" He just looked at me, sizing me up like he thought I was some kind of threat. And I told him, "I ain't here to check you or nothing like that. I just want to ask you something." He raised his eyebrows, still not saying anything. So I asked, "Do you know where this road leads?" He blinked, confused, like he wasn't expecting that kind of question. I didn't wait for him to answer. I told him my story. Not the watered-down version. The whole thing. I told him about the night I got shot, about the moment I left my body, about the way I felt myself falling through that dark, endless void. I told him how the air felt like it was made of shame, how the screams sounded like my own guilt echoing back at me 100 times louder. I told him about TUPAC standing there, warning me, telling me I was standing on the edge of eternal fire if I didn't change my ways. And I told him about the way God pulled me out, not because I was good, but because He's merciful. The kid didn't say anything for a long time. He just stared at me, quiet, like he was trying to figure out if I was serious or crazy. Then he asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" And I looked him in the eyes and said, "Because I wish somebody had told me before it was almost too late." That conversation stuck with me. I don't even know if the kid changed. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I planted a seed that day. And that's all I can do now. Plant seeds. Water them with prayer. Trust God to bring the growth. Because the truth is, I can't unsee what I saw. I can't erase the memory of that place. I still hear it sometimes, when I'm alone, when it's too quiet. I hear the whispers creeping in. I hear the wailing in the background of my thoughts. I smell that thick, choking air and feel that pressure on my chest like hands trying to pull me back. It reminds me every day that this life is not a game. That hell is not a myth. That salvation isn't just something you think about when you're old and tired. It's life or death. Eternal. And I thank God every single morning for giving me another chance to open my eyes, to walk a different road, to help somebody else do the same. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened? The shooting, the experience, all of it?" And I tell them no. I don't wish it away. Because that pain saved my soul. That fire woke me up. That brush with death is what finally made me realize what it means to really live. Not for myself. Not for respect. Not for survival. But for purpose. For truth. For God. I used to be a product of the streets, now I'm a testimony of grace. I used to be feared, now I'm faithful. I used to bring destruction, now I bring warning and light. And if even one person hears this and decides to turn around, to cry out to Jesus, to walk away from the edge, that's worth everything I went through. Every scar. Every nightmare. Every memory I can't shake. Because this world is full of traps that look like treasure, and I was chasing them all. I thought power would give me peace, but it didn't. I thought fear would give me freedom, but it didn't. The only real peace I ever found came after I died, and came back. I remember the first time I tried to talk about it in front of a church crowd. It was this small storefront spot on Eastern Avenue, nothing fancy, just some folding chairs, a little podium, a few rows of folks trying to find hope. Pastor Jenkins had heard about what happened to me through Mr. Earl and asked if I'd be willing to come speak. I said yes, but when the day came, I was sweating bullets before I even stepped inside. Not because I was afraid to talk, I'd face down death, cops, enemies, even the devil himself, but because I didn't know if church folks would believe me. Would they think I was making it up? Would they judge me for all the things I'd done before I found Jesus? But the second I opened my mouth, something took over. I wasn't reading off notes, or trying to impress anyone. I just let it pour out. Every detail. Every scream. Every second of that horrible place. I told them how real it was, how terrifying, how I could still feel the heat when I closed my eyes, like it left a stain on my soul that wouldn't wash off. I told them about the weight of my sins pressing me down, pulling me lower and lower until I didn't know if I'd ever come back up again. And I told them about TUPAC, how he stood there like a warning sign from God, not there to entertain, not to glorify himself, but to deliver a message straight into my chest. The room went silent. Not a shuffle, not a cough. Just faces frozen in shock, some with eyes wide, some with tears already falling. I told them about the moment I got pulled back, how it felt like being ripped through dimensions, how my soul felt like it was being wrung out and shoved back into my broken body. I told them about waking up to the beep of machines and the smell of antiseptic and the cold, harsh lights above me that didn't feel like salvation, but did feel like mercy. When I finished, I looked up and the whole room was standing. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. They just stood in this quiet reverence, like they had felt the edges of that fire through my words. Afterward, this old lady came up to me, probably in her 70s, dressed in a purple hat and gloves, tears rolling down her cheeks. She grabbed my hands and said, "Baby, I've been praying for the young men in this city for 40 years. I didn't think I'd live to see one pulled out of the fire." And I broke down all over again. Because her prayers, her quiet, faithful, unseen prayers, may have been part of the reason God had mercy on me. You never know who's interceding for you, who's on their knees while you're on your path to destruction. That moment gave me more strength than any bulletproof vest ever did. It reminded me that I wasn't just saved, I was sent. Sent to testify. Sent to be a voice crying out to those still caught up in the same lies that almost ended me. And so I kept talking. I started visiting jails, halfway houses, street corners I used to claim. I didn't care who laughed. I didn't care who doubted me. Because I knew what I saw. And once you've seen it, once you've felt that place where God's presence is gone, and only torment remains, you can't stay quiet. I remember walking into a juvenile detention center one afternoon, and the guard at the door asked me, "You a pastor or something?" I shook my head and said, "Nah. I'm just somebody who's been to hell and came back to tell the truth." He looked at me like I was crazy. But by the time I left that day, 3 of those boys were on their knees in tears. Because it's one thing to preach a sermon, It's another to bring a warning soaked in fire and mercy. I don't dress it up. I don't soften the edges. I look them in the eye and say, I was where you're headed. And I promise you, it ain't worth it. Because they need more than advice. They need truth. They need reality. And I've got that in full supply. I lived it. I barely escaped it. And I'll never stop talking about it. Not until every person I meet knows that there's still time, that Jesus is still reaching, and that no matter how far gone you are, God can still pull you back, just like He did for me. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about how close I came to being lost forever. I walk the same streets I used to run, past the same corners that used to feel like home, and I see the same cycle playing out over and over again. I see kids just like I was, broken, angry, looking for a place to belong, trying to find purpose and survival. And every time, I want to grab them and shake them and say, I know where this leads. Because I do. I felt the chains. I heard the screams. I stood in that burning silence where God's voice was nowhere to be found, and I will never forget it. It wasn't just fear, it was hopelessness, like my soul had been sealed off from everything good, everything true, everything I never even realized I needed until it was gone. That place, hell, it isn't chaos. It's perfect justice. And that's what scared me the most. It wasn't the flames or the darkness, it was knowing that I deserved to be there. That everything I'd ever justified, every time I told myself I was just doing what I had to do, it all stood there like witnesses at my trial. And the verdict was already written. But God stepped in. Not because I was clean, not because I was worthy, but because He is mercy. That's what this whole testimony is about. It's not about me. It's not about TUPAC. It's not even about the bullets. It's about the one and only living God who rescues people like me from places we have no business surviving. If you're watching this and you feel like it's too late for you, if you think you've done too much, been too far, burned too many bridges, I want you to hear me right now. It is not too late. I don't care where you've been or what you've done. If you still have breath in your lungs, you have a chance. A real chance. Not to clean yourself up, not to fake it and pretend like everything's okay, but to cry out to the only one who can pull your soul out of the fire. His name is Jesus Christ. He didn't come to save the perfect. He came to save the lost. People like me. People like you. And all He wants is for you to turn to Him. No fancy words, no polished prayers, just a heart that's ready to surrender. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a saint. I'm just a man who saw the end of the road, and by the grace of God, was pulled back before it was too late. So don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't tell yourself you'll get right later. Later isn't promised. I should have died in that alley. I should have been gone forever. But I'm here. And I'm telling you now, with everything I have, give your life to Christ. Don't wait until you're lying in your own blood. Don't wait until your soul starts falling into that place where the screams never stop. Jesus is calling you right now. Answer Him. Let Him save you the way He saved me. Because I'm not just alive, I'm redeemed. And if He did it for me, He'll do it for you. All you have to do is say yes. If this testimony spoke to you, don't scroll away. This channel exists to share real stories of what happens after this life. Stories that shake us, warn us, and most importantly, point us to Jesus. If you're searching for truth, if you've ever wondered what lies beyond the grave, or if you just need hope in the middle of your mess, then subscribe right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a testimony that could change your life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's running out of time and doesn't even know it. Don't just watch these stories, let them move you. Let them wake you up. And if you haven't given your life to Christ yet, don't wait. Do it now. Right now. Drop a comment below and let us know if you made that decision, and we'll pray with you. This is more than a channel. This is a warning. and a lifeline. You've been called. Now it's time to answer.